Dallas has just been on a tear. I believe we can attribute that to Jason Robertson. Also, Jake Ottinger, who's really stepped in.
Yeah, so we can compare a rookie QB to a toddler. Hayward's absence for this game will be significant, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game turns into a blowout as of late.
The Golden Knights just can't pull it. I really think the Avalanche are determined this year.
They made so many moves and grabbed so many guys that they have to win a championship or at least make the finals. They were on our championship and bust.
The same self, the only year he won an MVP was the year he cheated, which really should put something against that MVP. But
Yeah, and as a Cowboys fan, I have learned how dangerously good Aaron Rodgers has been with he can just thread a pass.
Hello, I am Ruby Ackerman, and you are listening to Outsider's Opinion with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week. You know, as we were talking about in our small forward episode, which you should check out, got very good at the top or the end of the episode when we got to number one. But now we are reaching the start of the season. So, that means NBA Finals are bust. And joining me is the tenured podcast veteran, Austin.
I think I can actually accept that one. We've been doing this for 3+ years now, so I think it checks out.
Yeah. So, and we're veterans at this concept. This is probably one of the heavier teams.
Easiest. We've never had more than 5, and this year we have 7 for NBA Finals or bust. It's so hard to choose between teams, and there's so many teams that this is it. This is their year. And if they don't get it done this year, we could see a lot of change.
And here's one team that I want to talk about because we were like, yeah, this team has to be on here. They're in the finals last year, but did not win. And clarifier, even though the Nuggets won, they're exempt. They get a passing grade on this because they won. You get some grace. But with the Heat, they have been so close. They've made moves, and they were rumored to make moves. They did not make moves, but it's still a championship or bust. They bet on themselves, really. They're like, no, we don't need Dame. They're playing hard to get, and they didn't get Dame. So, to me, it's still a championship or bust season for them.
100%. You can't make 2 finals within 4 years and then not consider yourself finals or bust heading forward, especially when you haven't won. So, I think Jimmy and this cast of characters have to get it together because anything short of that will be disappointing. And to get through the Jimmy Butler era without a ring, I feel like it would look bad against the Heat name.
Yeah, and really, how much longer does this Jimmy Butler era exist in Miami?
That's a good question. I think it's really up to who they bring in and how the supporting cast can really help because no one can do it by themselves.
Yeah, and the thing is, I never really thought Jimmy Butler was this quote unquote old in the NBA world. Do you want to guess for how old he is?
Who?
Jimmy Butler.
Butler is okay. I believe he was drafted in 13 or 12? I'm gonna go 2012. He was drafted. So I'm gonna say been in the league 11 years. But I know he went to a lot of college. 33.
Close, 34. And when did you say he was drafted?
2012.
2011.
Okay, well, you see, that's why I was 1 year low. So
yeah, that's why you were 1 year off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It checks out.
But yeah, to me, I thought he was like just getting 30. No, he's 34, and so that's another reason why the NBA his era could be close to ending soon. But yeah, so let's talk about a team that did make moves. And it's also in the East. To me, it's the Bucks. When you go trade, Giannis has not signed the extension, which I think he gets like $70 more million if he waits a year. Also puts some pressure on the team. But you go out and trade for Dame. They become finals favorites. You deserve to be on this list.
100%. You don't make a move like that and not be on this list. They could have won the finals last year and they would be on this list. Because trading for Dame is a move to win a championship now. You're not waiting. This is an immediate do something, especially because of how much it means to Dame's legacy and now Giannis's. Because if you don't win with this core, it will again stain their future.
And this core is starting to get older. Chris Middleton came back. He's a little bit older than Giannis. You have Brooke Lopez,
Yep.
which he gets kind of lost in this with the Dame situation, but he's a great center. And really, they've lost depth. What do you want to add?
So one thing I saw a couple of days ago, I saw it on Instagram or somewhere else, but they have the all-time leading scorer for 3 different teams. Brooke Lopez is the all-time leading scorer for the Nets.
Mhm.
Damian Lillard is the all-time scorer for the Trailblazers, and Giannis is the all-time scorer for the Bucks. So they have 3 different players who are team leaders for points all time for their respective franchises, all in one roster.
Wow, that's crazy. That's a good stat. So yeah, like how long does Brooke Lopez keep doing it? And so this is really the year where you got to make it to the championship, giving up what you did, giving up a really good player in Drew Holiday. So speaking of Drew Holiday, I know we're kind of a lot. Well, yeah, the Celtics made the trade for Drew Holiday. That adds on to they already brought KP in. They've lost guys. I believe did they lose Robert Williams? They lost Robert Williams in that game in the trade for Drew Holiday, right?
Yes, they did.
So they're really going for that star power. I do like them with Drew Holiday, but I do miss their depth. And this is really the year because you give Jaylen Brown that extension. And to me, KP is a big move for them because it's a very high risk move. And it just seems like they want better players to finally get to that championship. They were on the border of coming back down 3-0. The year before that, they were in the finals. So the next step, and with all those moves, you have to be in this list. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. All these teams on this list have something in common, and that's time is not infinite. You cannot stay with this current roster forever. And the moves they've made and the changes that we've seen, they have to act now.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And with the Celtics, you've been on that doorstep for so long. You gotta be on this list, and I don't think they've been on this list yet.
They may have been on the list last year. I don't remember, but they could not be left off after the Drew Holiday trade. And we don't know. Again, Drew Holiday is one of those elder statesmen of the league. Same thing with Al Horford. We don't know how KP is going to change on this roster. And obviously, with how much they're paying Tatum and Brown, those contracts eat a lot of cap space. So, again, this roster is not going to stay stagnant for long, and they have to act before it's too late.
Yeah, and it seems we may have had them on the last year. The future, we're no longer concerned of like, oh, what do these players develop into? Okay, you have these players. You've added these other players. What does this look like? And another team, this is why it's finals year or bust, is the time is now. This year is definitely a time now for this team, is the Suns. Because of the new rules, they'll get heavily restricted on money. And you really have to do well this year. I'll let you talk more about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Suns took one of my favorite players in the league from my favorite team, the Wizards, and that is going to cost them, like you said, a lot of money in the future. But with the Damian Lillard trade that they were obviously a part of, getting Grayson Allen, losing DeAndre Ayton, picking up Nurkic, again, they're making all the moves necessary for this to be a championship push. They obviously made the NBA Finals back in 2021 and lost. So this, again, is another team that's been there but hasn't won. All the teams we've mentioned so far have been that far, but haven't obviously crossed the threshold yet. When you look at the Celtics back in 2022, the Heat in 2020 and 2023, and then obviously the Suns in 2021.
Yeah, the Bucks did cross it, but I see what you're saying. And a lot of these teams swung heavy for stars. They stopped relying on just drafting and developing players. They've been doing that. They're like, okay, we're gonna go swing heavy for a star. That's what the Bucks did. That's what the Celtics did twice, in my opinion, with KP and Drew Holiday, and that's what the Suns did twice as well. So yeah, another team where they've been on this list multiple times, but they're also making moves, and they did win it in the past, is the Golden State Warriors. I think when you bring in Chris Paul and you get rid of Jordan Poole, I know Jordan Poole wasn't helping them, but that's kind of foregoing on the future and going to now. Also, they bring back Draymond, which I think is a good move for them because there's no Draymond. I don't think will be any better in any other place than the Warriors. But how long does this core last, and how long can you keep adding pieces until you need to redo the whole thing?
Yeah, especially, I mean, this is the one I think time is the most important for, because when you get up to the age that Curry is or Draymond is, the fall can be precipitous. It can be immediate that you just lost all of what you had before. And I don't necessarily expect that to happen, but they also have, like you mentioned, Chris Paul, who's extremely old. This is the year for that. And I never thought I'd see Chris Paul and Stephen Curry on the same team, especially after all the bickering between those two that has happened, between the fake laugh that Chris Paul had towards Steve Kerr, in the 2018 Western Conference Finals when Chris Paul didn't allow Stephen Curry to warm up at the Houston Rockets arena. This is a weird matchup, but again, by making that move, the time is now, and there's a lot of things that have to go right, but obviously they've been there and done that.
And the thing that I also want to add is they were bad for a few years, and we thought they could extend that window, which I guess they did, but it didn't really extend. There's no major guy coming up that could have been Jordan Poole, but it's really the same core from when they won a long time ago. And then, of course, that was the main core this year. And now they kind of traded those young guys for a Chris Paul or retooled. So it's still that same core. The future does not look brighter than it does now here.
That's a great way to put it. The future definitely does not look any brighter now.
Because there's no, what else can they do? Well, they can win another championship. That's why they're championship or bust. Same thing for this other team. The Lakers, I know they've won before. But once you have LeBron, who's declining, but also after just getting all those players, and I really like the roster they've built. They were very active in free agency. I don't know how much Christian Wood's going to help them, but to me, they were in the Western Conference Finals. They got swept. They made all these moves to compete for a championship.
Yeah, I mean, when the moves that they made have really, again, just like all these other teams, allowed for them to make this the year for them. Again, another team that's dealing with age, because across this roster there is a lot of players that are getting much, much older, and health is a thing with this team as well. They've had a lot of injury concerns, a lot of players that could play more but don't, whether it's because of resting. We'll have to see if that actually is what's happening with some of these players, if they're just resting, and now that the NBA enforced rules to where you can't rest multiple star players at the same night, that we'll see some of these guys play more. But if not, we could, again, playing without your star players is always going to hurt.
Yeah, I think that's well said. So yeah, and now we just have one team, and that's the other LA team, correct?
Yes.
So the Clippers.
Yep. The Clippers are probably would you say they're the most injury-prone team on the list?
Yes. And I think if we're talking about future bright, I think that first year was the brightest that season could have been.
Or the brightest the team could be, or the brightest that season could be?
The team could be.
Okay.
Because I think they've just gone downhill since.
Yeah, but it's also because of the injuries that's happened to Kawhi. Him being out a whole season didn't help. Paul George being out last playoffs didn't help. And now that they have Russ, they have another one of those older guys that has experience but still hasn't crossed the hurdle. They have a lot of competition. If we look at our list of teams, Lakers, Suns, Warriors, Clippers, those are 4 teams in the same conference, all going for a final or bust. And that doesn't even include a team like the Nuggets that's obviously trying to repeat. So I'd say the Clippers are on the lower end of that list of teams that we think are most likely, but they have to be on here because of the money they spent, because of the moves to pick up Russ, because of uh, the future extensions possibly of Paul George and Kawhi in doubt. Next year, after the season, they would have a player option. We do not know if they're going to sign that, and this is just a team that has not met their potential when they got together on July 4th at midnight. And I remember in a hotel room in Indianapolis, I saw the notification that Paul George was going to go to the Clippers with Kawhi. That was probably the biggest move, I would say, in NBA history, because it was one move basically to get two guys, because Kawhi was not going to go without Paul George. Kawhi was not going to sign there without Paul George. So once Paul George trades went through, they were basically trading for Kawhi. So that move going through set up their team for where they are, and they have not met expectations. When I heard Kawhi and Paul George, two former MVP candidates, coming together, I'm like, how many rings are the Clippers going to have in a couple of years? Well, right now it's none, and at this point they're running on empty. This is the last season, in my opinion, that they can really do it.
Yeah, and that team was they had so much great depth. And talking about that trade, who did they give up in that trade for those two players?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, and they need a guard.
And no.
No, they just give up picks and shit.
Yeah, picks.
Yeah.
And Danilo
But
Gallinari, but that doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah, it's true. But yeah, it was a really key move for them, and it hasn't worked out. And yeah, and the player options is huge. This is possibly the final year. They could both opt out and do something. I believe they worked it in the contract. So, okay, this is the year. And when we were talking about it, I'm like, is this the final year of Kawhi and Paul George? And it could be.
It
Kawhi
really
may
could
decide
be.
to go somewhere else.
Yeah, especially because we haven't really seen consistency from those players in terms of teams throughout their career. So I don't think necessarily that they're content, especially if they don't win a championship this year. We could see this go down because Paul George and Kawhi aren't getting any younger. Paul George being 33, he'll be 34 after this season. You don't have many more prime years left, and if you got to make a move, you got to make a move.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's all the teams we have. And I know heavy amount, but all these teams deserve to be on here. And hopefully we conveyed that. If we didn't, let us know. And if there's a team you thought we should have added, let us know. We appreciate you listening and thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.